Guys, there's a lot of information going around on the internet, and I'm getting comments and emails from very good friends and all of you guys talking about when we're seeing these wildfires that are going on around the nation, that you'll see an entire neighborhood burn to white ash as the trees are still standing. Even that there's cars out there that have like an aluminum melt puddle in front of them. How does that occur? We're going to do a deep dive into it because I want to know myself. Stay tuned. Now, let's take a look at this image. It's actually a video. I'm not going to play the whole video. It's from Fox 13 out of Seattle, and the credit is Ron Valencia out of Spokane County. But I did a clip out of that, and this is an example of what we're talking about. Now, we've seen different fires. We saw the one where now they've got an arson suspect in custody. But this particular fire was not that one. It was it's been during August, but they had a light line that either sagged or collapsed, maybe from overexertion on the grid. But this one was started by that type of fire. The one with the arson fire is a different one. But what I want to point out in this video is a couple of things. Let me see if I can pull it up somewhat. Now, this is just one example, and there's dozens and dozens on the internet and on YouTube of different fires showing that you would have a house completely burnt to white ash, still have some green grass and green trees, things like that. And even cars, again, that were melted. It would be like an aluminum pool just sitting in the street there, but not much ash on the streets or anything like that. And then over here you see some perfectly healthy houses that don't appear to be damaged. And one of the things, that people have talked about is, how does that happen? Is it a direct, what they call a direct energy weapon, that they're trying to take out different sections of real estate, maybe build something, some big enterprise? You never know what it is. You never know about it. But on this particular fire, I want to talk about things that could apply to many others, other than this one was a natural fire, and one of the big ones was an arson fire. But the physics apply to both of them, regardless of the ignition or the ignition point. So let me, again, point this out. You've got, again, green trees here. There does appear to be some browning in the grass in this area. We're just going to look at the data here. But coming up this hill, and this is the direction the wind came. I looked up the date and the wind directions for this particular chopper video, okay? High winds coming from the right direction. And what it did, they're experiencing extreme drought, just like the desert Southwest. And all through Spokane, Washington, and all the way up into Canada, you've seen the forest fires. You've seen our reports from the total precipitable water that does not exist, and that extreme heat dome that is over the West. You've seen all of that. So if you get everything drying out, and you get high winds, it changes from, like you see a forest fire burn normally, which is pretty intense, but it changes when you add high wind, very dry fuel. It becomes a blowtorch that is going sideways, not up and down, and it creates this blowtorch effects. Now, if you looked at the old system of that, it would remember the ancient bellows, or not that ancient really, where they would forge steel, make horseshoes or whatever. You would have somebody pumping a big bellows there and keeping everything hot. Now it's all electronic, if they even use bellows now, if it's not all laser. But now it would be a fan blowing that blowtorch, or just imagine a blowtorch blowing horizontally. So when you get that effect of high winds and the fuel coming up a hill like this, this is what can happen. And again, going with the physics of it, is because of the drought, we're seeing record lows on all along the Colorado River and the Green River, at all the reservoirs and dams. And it's across the West. Did you know that even the houses will start to dry out? The composition within the houses, all the wood framing and all of that. And also on the cars, guys, what happens is you got a lot of plastic involved. Now imagine that blowtorch effect. The plastic heats and it burns very quickly, and then the steel heats. But that heat remains long enough to melt the aluminum blocks and things like that. You see that puddle run out and not much of the car is left. Then the other intensification of that is fuel in the tanks. And then the other question is, and it's all legitimate, and like I said, I'm looking into it for myself, is that why is there no ash on the streets? Well, what did we just talk about? Very high wind. All of it blows across. Well, what's the next big thing? And is the green trees. So I live amongst a bunch of big trees, just like you're seeing. Some of mine are even bigger, and we've seen it all. But guys, what happens, if you have a forest fire that's slow moving, you'll see it take time to heat the trees up and even ignite into the top. It looks like a big blowing torch out the top. But in drought conditions, in a high wind, what happens is they do feel the heat, but it is not there very long. But what happens, the damage may show up later, just like you're seeing the browning of these lawns. And this chopper image was a few days after the fire. So everything was dry. The houses were dry. The cars are made out of plastic. They had fuel in them, and a lot of the aluminum, if you look at the melt patterns on them, and I did, because I was asked honest questions, and I looked at a lot more data than what we're seeing here. There's no need because you've seen it. But you'll see that big pool of aluminum. Now you've got aluminum blocks, you've got aluminum rims and all, but when that everything heats up and the plastic's gone, the fuel is hitting, and the heat, what happens is the steel frame heats up so hot that the aluminum can't handle the temperature. These forest fires blow over, and I checked it, at about 400 or 1400 degrees under these conditions with the wind. If you add it up, that's what you're dealing with. But these cars, the new ones especially, all of that interior and the aluminum is melting at 1200 degrees. So the forest fires, or the blowtorch effect from the fires and the wind, are kicking at 200 degrees above what is necessary to do the damage we're seeing. And if it at 1400 degrees can do that to the car, imagine what it can do to wood frame houses, vinyl, plastic. It doesn't matter. Everything is going to get crisp under a 1400 degree blowtorch. Now, this has been going on since Hawaii, even before that, possibly in the Palisades. We don't know the reasons. We don't know who did it, if it was nature or anything else. But I'm just looking at the physics of what we're seeing in these cases. The reason why is because we've got a lot of things we need to be looking at. And if you go through and you separate the items, I know it's not that popular to say so, but let me say this. My first opinion was that we were seeing the effects of DEW, direct energy weapons, beaming down again for whatever reason. But looking at the physics, looking at the weather that day, looking at all the conditions, I can see exactly what happened. And it's going to become more common as the drought continues. And so another reason for the video is if you're in one of these areas and you're experiencing this, look at what can happen very quickly. Now, guys, I want to show you something that I'm glad I saved it. A couple weeks ago, when these fires were breaking out, we saw this happen over in Nevada, guys. And there were actually 3 fires, but the ones you're seeing here, and another one that started were all almost simultaneous. Now look right here. You see this spark? It was a flash. I'll show you the video. And you see this gold line right there? When I saw that, that's when one of the reasons I wanted to dig into some of the information here. I've never seen that before, looking back at all the years of watching weather and hurricanes and everything else. And it was a very rare thing to happen. What we're seeing in this line was a radar sweep. And in these areas, they have what's called dry lightning. And what can happen is you can have dry lightning hit someplace where the tinder's very dry, and it may sit there as a cold, just a cold until maybe high winds come in and it flames it up. And that's why I saw, and in the video, these were simultaneous ignitions. But the spark thing, guys, was the radar just happened, the sweep happened to catch the arc flash of a lightning strike at that precise second. In other words, if the sweep would have been over in this area, or this gold line sweep would have been here, we would not have this arc. And so that immediately made me think of what really are the fires until I looked into what that was. But it's an amazing thing to see. Let's play it through. We'll check out a couple different views. Again, you're not going to see the radar sweep except that it happened to catch that dry lightning that caused these other fires right here around it. Notice there's no clouds, no rain, anything like that. And as it swept, there was a quick flash. You saw that, and we'll back it out a little bit, and you can see the fires igniting at the same time. Check that out. Why? Because the wind shifted as it started to move the high pressure a little further to the east that we saw. Anyway, you had the simultaneous ignition time that looked very suspicious, and you had that arc there that if we didn't know what it was, you'd say, well, there was the source. And notice it was back during when we were seeing all the forest fire smoke saturate the nation. But again, the reason I wanted to look was because I noticed right off the bat, these fires started at the same time, and right after that, we had an arc flash here that may have started a future fire. I don't know, because I just caught it at that moment. Anyway, guys, I wanted to come in and step in and give you my opinion because so many of you ask. Again, knowledge is power. We got so much going on around us right now that we need to understand what's really happening, and it may save your life one day if you get in one of these situations. But it's a heads up, guys. Be safe.